with Reverend Rosemary. We are all yours. And we need you to unmute yourself, please.
Good idea. Okay, so it's great to see you all and to be with you this morning. Yesterday, I was on the verge of calling the ambulance. So this is a miracle that today I was able to get up and get dressed and I'm talking to you.
Bravo.
So thank you, Spirit. And thank you all who I asked to pray for me. We are experiencing the beauty of applied positive thinking. And so, yes, Dr. Maya just talked about Unity Farm, which was the core, the heart of Unity activities, Unity community for many years in the early to mid 20th century. And Charles Fillmore was still alive, was still directing it up until the late 1940s. I have found a couple of advertisements, pamphlets that were sent out inviting people to come spend the summer at Unity Farm.
Right.
It was quite interesting. They were promising like a holistic summer fun. And they had, I don't know, where those buildings are today, but they had a variety of accommodations. And they were talking about the delicious, healthy food, because Unity, in its early days, was a pioneer in much that has become well known for healthy eating. And for instance, the Unity Farm pioneered organic farming in Kansas City area. Everybody that I know, whether they're Unity or not, who grew up in Kansas City or whose family was from Kansas City, everybody knew about Unity's organic farm, local healthy produce, and vegetarian restaurants, and recipes. I mean, I will, as I keep fishing in truthunity.net, come up with other brochures and pamphlets that I have seen about the healthful living at Unity Farm. So Unity, interestingly, didn't really start out thinking of itself as a church. It was a way of living in connection with divine mind. It was, every day. And as I've been doing this research, I've realized, the whole idea of a church, as far as Unity is concerned, that's a compromise. It's a dumbing down, if you will. Because what does a church do? A church invites us to think about God 1 hour a week, maybe an hour and a half, on Sunday morning. And then you go out and you have lunch and you forget all about God. That's not a way of life. And that's how Unity began and flourished, was as a way of life. My sister had a scare a couple of weeks ago, and it was very, interesting because, you know, we all grew up Catholic. She's still Catholic. She's very observant. And so she was talking about, you know, she was anxious because she was going to have to see the surgeon again for a second surgery. And so I kind of suggested to her that, okay, the best way to deal with this is what Emmett Fox taught us, called it the golden key. And in one sentence, what that means is when you've got a problem, don't think about the problem, think about God. And unity, as I have experienced it, has been kind of a way of life. We practice doing this when we get together. And so it's something that we do regularly and that we can do when we need it. So the day after the interview with the surgeon, my sister called me back. She said, I failed completely. And I said, what do you mean you failed? She said, all I could think of all night long was the interview with the surgeon. And I was sick to my stomach all night and barfing. And I didn't sleep for a minute. But I did finally tell myself, okay, this has to stop. Because I've got to be at that interview. And she made that happen. I said, you didn't fail. You learned a whole lot. You learned the power of your mind over your body. The power of your mind to make happen what you at least had to make happen. You can expand that. So you can make happen what you want to happen by using that same technique. So, but I had a hard time talking her down from thinking that she failed. You know, it wasn't a failure. We don't fail when we try things. We learn a lot. We often learn what we don't want to do again. That's important learning. So anyway, it really reinforced for me this notion that, wow, the difference between going to church on Sunday and living unity teachings is that we can perform, we can practice the unity teachings that we know, which of course were new to her. It's not surprising that she forgot. She won't forget again, I can tell you. It was a very interesting demonstration. 3 or 4 weeks ago, 4 or 5 weeks ago, I guess now, unity people were really struggling with a discussion, a town hall online, which started, I guess, really becoming front and center in our minds at last year's convention. And that was Reverend Shadd's, the president of Unity Worldwide Ministries, idea in trying to figure out how to attract more people to unity. His idea was, well, what if we go back to highlighting how Christian we are? There's a lot of Christians. Some of them will be curious and will want to try unity because we're highlighting our Christianity. And I'm sorry, unity in the 1980s, by that time, had shifted into thinking of itself as a church. And of course, as a Christian church. But I have to say that when I found unity and felt saved and relieved it was because I wasn't looking for Christianity. After growing up in Christianity, I felt rejected. I was looking for a welcoming community. And when I found unity, it wasn't Christianity that attracted me. It was acceptance and joy, which are aspects of the unity tradition, and actually an outgrowth of Unity Village, Unity Farm as a community. So it happened synchronistically that Nancy, during that weekend, turned on a documentary called BlueZones, which I wasn't really that familiar with. I had kind of heard about places where, you know, people lived an extra 20 years and were healthy and didn't have cancer or dementia or any of the diseases of aging. But, you know, they were in places like Costa Rica and an island in Greece that I'd never heard of before. And, you know, there were 6 places that were not familiar to me. So I thought, oh, yeah, well, whatever. I hadn't really thought about that it applied to me in any way. And as I read the presentation, the books, after I saw the documentary, I realized, hey, they didn't identify all the blue zones that there ever were. Unity Farm was clearly a blue zone. Not only because, as Dr. Meyer said, people routinely lived into their 80s and 90s and kept going, and unity ministers must still do that. Sorry about the interruption. It was just the whole community thing that I read it and I thought, oh, this is unity. I hadn't really ever thought of that. I have checked that out with maybe 20 unity ministers across the country, across Canada and the US. And everybody that I've said that to has said, you're right. Nobody has objected. Everybody said, oh, yeah. So it turns out I've had great fun learning about blue zones. What makes them blue zones? The research was awesome because the researchers visited every blue zone that they identified. And they spent a couple of years in those places. And they got to know the 90 and 100-year-old healthy community leaders that were still bouncing around. And then they compared what they had observed in those 6 blue zones. Because their question was, is this something that we can make happen for ourselves? Is there a set of characteristics that all of these long-lived communities share? And the answer is yes. There are 9 common practices, behaviors, attitudes, ideas that they all share. And so the researchers then documented what those 9 characteristics are. And they documented them beautifully. So they're fun to read about. They're great stories. And people kept coming to them and saying, hey, what would happen if we did that now in our place? Would we get the 20 extra years of life? The answer is yes. There are now about 30 new blue zones in the 21st century. And consistently, the healthy life expectancy in all of those places has increased. Everybody that joined or that started to create a blue zone for themselves, they have benefited very quickly. Within a year, the statistics changed. So now there's about 30 21st century blue zones. Places like Fort Worth, Texas, Blue Cross patients in Hawaii, the whole state. There are quite a few cities where communities have just decided, okay, we're going to do this. And they have benefited beautifully. They have really thoroughly enjoyed changing their habits and their practices as a city, as an organization, as a state, as a whatever. And it seems to happen very naturally. So as I've been talking about this with my family and friends and colleagues, like I said, everyone has said, oh, yeah, okay, that's true. And then I've said, well, I'm going to start doing it. And the friends that I've talked to, they've come right along and started doing it too. And it turns out that it sounds kind of intimidating up front, but it's actually great fun to turn yourself into a blue zone group. It's actually very natural. It's fun because everybody gets involved, and it's rewarding. So I've been having a blast creating a blue zone with my family and my friends. It's really, and several of them said, yeah, let me bring my family into this. And there's no, what's lovely about it is there's no real obligation. There's 9 values, power principles. And you get together with a small group, can be 3 people together. Doesn't have to be a lot of people, but a small group of people that you enjoy being with anyway. Because the basis is what has shown up in research as contagion. Everything, turns out, is contagious. So there's all kinds of research findings out there about the effects of knowing people, even people you don't know well, who, you know, have problems with jobs, who are too fat or too skinny, who, I mean, all kinds of stuff. Turns out it's all contagious. That ways of living are contagious. And that is what what the blue zones take advantage of. Because the basic principle they're operating on is, okay, let's make this so easy, it's like falling off a log. And way easier to do it this way than not. So they're taking advantage of contagion among people who know each other for these 9 spiritually and physically healthy behaviors. So let me just share with you, what are the 9 blue zone values. The first one, the first four are physical. The first physical one is sharing with your family, and family here has quotation marks. These are the people that you've identified as your Blue Zone family. For most people, it's a combination of a couple of relatives, 3 or 4 relatives, and a couple of friends. And if you think back to the friend group that your parents or grandparents or any relatives that you grew up with hung out with, that's basically a Blue Zone group. There were always a couple of aunts and uncles that you weren't related to, remember? They were just good friends and just shouldn't be there because they were part of the family. And that's why you called them aunt or uncle, because they really are part of the family, even though they're not blood relatives. So your family group are the people you decide to include because you like them in your life and you want to spend time with them. So first one, I don't sound like I have an idea what a healthy way of living might be, but be that as it may. So includes your healthy way of living includes natural, easy, mostly plant-based foods that are reasonably high fiber and low glycemic and well integrated in terms of protein, fat, and carbohydrates. It's balanced. And what you drink, mostly in social context, and water is the best beverage. But other possible things are natural, unsweetened beverages like herb teas, green tea, home brewed coffee, wine in moderation, and in community relaxing. It's not hard. It's actually pretty easy. It feels good, it tastes good, it's fine. So you don't have to become a strict anything. You just keep everything simple and healthful. And the second one is similar. You don't have to run a marathon or be a mountain climber, but you don't avoid moving. So, walking is perfectly fine. You walk regularly, not as an athletic endeavor, but to get from one place to another on a regular basis. You enjoy moving with other people. You are fine with cleaning and with tasks, with doing tasks, with chopping things when you're cooking. You don't do it all with machines. That helps to keep us healthy and moving. So, you climb the stairs rather than take the elevator. If it's a story or two, again, you're not out for athletic, exhibitions. You just move, and that is actually an important practice for staying healthy. You practice releasing stress on a regular basis. Regular meditation is good for that. Or you get together with friends and family regularly to just have fun together. You talk, you eat, you play music, you dance, whatever you do, you do. But you do it on a regular basis, part of a week's expected ways of being in touch. So the principle is moderation is really important, balance. But what works for each family member is an important value. This is not dogmatic, not heroic. It's integrating and balancing. And the fourth physical principle is balance everything and give yourself plenty of sleep. And the five spiritual ones, first, participate in a spiritual practice or celebration that your family supports at least once a week. So this can follow the traditions and beliefs of any faith tradition. There's no dogmatism about it. It's just what works. To choose and maintain your excitement about your purpose. Whatever purpose makes you want to get up in the morning and start your day. Third is probably, as I have been doing this, for me it's the hardest, but other things will be hardest for other people. And that is to put your family group first and be faithful to when, the group gets together, or, if your family calls each other, has a group call on the phone, say, once a week. It's really, really important to give priority to the togetherness of your family group, including the fun times. It's all part of taking advantage of contagion, making it easier to practice the healthy activities than it is not to. So that's part of it. A fourth spiritual principle is make your family group inclusive across ages, abilities, passions, life stages. So they really value, grandparents and grandkids having fun together, being part of community together. And fifth, contribute to your family what you do best and be willing to benefit from what other individuals in the family do best. In other words, become a sharing community. That's it. The hardest part, I think, for most of us is going to be, deciding who your family is. Actually talking about it. But like I said, it turns out to be way more fun than you expect. Quite amazing. So once I always do this, I get way ahead of myself. Anyway, I did read all the books. Everybody's had great fun with the cookbook. I mean, when you're putting a family group together, there's always somebody that enjoys food and really, loves making good stuff. And that provides a way for some family members to really take an important role where they would otherwise be kind of against doing something like that. But the cookbook has proven to be a wonderful resource for creating a group. Okay. So I realize I'm not totally together here. The fact that I'm together at all is a blessing. So my plan is I'm going to apply with the Blue Zone organization to direct a Blue Zone project centered on unity. And I want to start with maybe 5 to 10 little family groups. And I think that that's realistic, and it'll be simple, and it'll be fun. And, you know, you don't have to do it perfectly at all. Right is what works for you. And so my plan is to, in May, to share some discussions to ask you between now and the start of May to consider, would you enjoy doing this, and who with? And just, you know, find your quote unquote family people, at least 3 to go all together, including you. But, you know, don't leave somebody out. There's no maximum on this. So whatever feels natural. And just, you know, if you have questions, ask me. My email is revrohyde@gmail.com. If somebody could put that in the chat. I'm on my phone because 2 computers didn't work this morning. I don't even know how to do that on my phone. But if somebody could enter that email in the chat, I'd appreciate it. And what we will do is ask one spokesperson from each family to get together in a group on Zoom, like once a month. And we'll, you know, talk about and think about and discuss what possibilities are for adding one of the Blue Zone practices into your community life. Easily, naturally, you know, there's nothing dogmatic about this. It's all what works for you, for the people in your family. And then at the end of the month, we'll share what you're doing so we can learn from each other. And I will launch this in June of 2024. We'll record what we've experienced between June 2024 and June 2025. And at Unity, at convention or around convention, just share with other Unity people, perhaps in Unity magazine. I don't know, I haven't figured out the you know, and I'll welcome suggestions, the actual venues for things. We'll just share it at the end of June of the next year. And, you know, if we've had a horrible time, we won't sound like anybody else wants to do it. And that's okay. But if we've discovered new things and enjoyed experiencing them, we have this simple program. We've tried it out, and we'll be happy to assist other groups who'd like to try it for themselves. So it will be a learning experience all the way around. And based on what I've experienced so far, I think for me, it has been so joyous and so amazing that I highly recommend it. So let us go within for just a couple of minutes. Slow our breathing. And think of spirit within us, within all of us. and think of how spirit and love play out every day. You know, we go outside and watch the birds, listen to their chirping, watch the squirrels. We call someone we love. We think about what we really want to experience and experience it happening. We encounter a child and attune immediately to the divinity in that soul. We notice a little flower blooming or a whole tree resplendent in flowers. Those are just a few of the ways we enjoy our divine being. It's not hard. It's not demanding. It's fun. It's beautiful. It's joyful. And that is God in our life. Together we relax and become attuned, vibrating with the energy, the divine energy that's all around us and a part of us. And we are grateful for this opportunity to be together as God. And our time is coming to an end. So we need to bring our attention back into our physical being. Move a couple of muscles, open our eyes, share spirit with each other in our smile. So I look forward to moving forward with whoever of you feels like this will be great fun. And so it is. Thank you.